Let's deep dive into a mind-blowing YouTube podcast created by artificial intelligence, where you will hear conversations by two AI agents in a way you've never imagined before. This isn't just a podcast, it's a journey into the future, crafted by AI, designed for you. Ready to have your mind blown? Let's begin.
Okay, so we all want to live longer, healthier lives, right?
Right.
But what if aging isn't just something that happens to us? What if it's a problem we can actually solve?
Yeah, that's the radical idea at the heart of Lifespan
Lifespan.
by geneticist David Sinclair.
So today we're diving deep into his research.
It really is a fascinating shift in perspective.
Okay.
Instead of just accepting aging as this inevitable thing,
Yeah.
Sinclair argues that it's actually a disease.
Okay.
And like any disease, it might be treatable.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now, he uses this really great analogy of a DVD to explain how this all works. So our DNA, it's like the data on that DVD.
Yeah.
And aging is like getting all those scratches on the surface. Those scratches make it harder for our bodies to read the information correctly.
Yeah, and those scratches are essentially changes to our epigenome,
Or epigenome.
the software that controls our genes.
Okay, so our epigenome is like the instructions telling our cells what to do. But how does that software get messed up in the first place?
Right, yeah.
Is it just random errors over time, or are there specific things that cause these like epigenetic changes?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
It's not just random chance, you know, lifestyle, environment, even our diet. All of that can impact those epigenetic markers.
Oh, wow.
And the really exciting part is that Sinclair's research shows we might actually be able to manipulate those markers
Okay.
to reverse some of that age-related decline.
Hold on. So you're saying like we could actually debug our bodies?
Yeah.
Like we would with a computer program?
That's the idea.
Wow.
So in one study, his lab used gene therapy to restore youthful epigenetic markers in aged mice.
Okay.
And get this, those mice actually regained some vision.
Really?
It's like they hit the rewind button on aging.
That's huge. But how does that translate to humans? Is this something we could actually benefit from in our lifetime?
It's still early days,
Okay.
but the implications are massive.
Yeah.
If we can manipulate the epigenome to reverse aging in animals,
Yeah.
it opens up some incredible possibilities for human therapies.
Wow.
And that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
Sinclair also dives into the role of specific genes and proteins that seem to control aging, like sirtuins.
Sirtuins, they sound like kind of like superheroes.
They kind of are.
What are they exactly, and
Yeah.
how do they fit into this whole aging puzzle?
So sirtuins are this family of proteins
Okay.
that are essential for keeping our cells healthy.
Okay.
They help repair DNA damage, they reduce inflammation, and basically ensure that our cells are running smoothly.
Okay.
But here's the catch.
What's the catch?
They need a molecule called NAD+ to function.
NAD+.
And as we age, our NAD+ levels just plummet.
So less NAD+ means our sirtuin superheroes can't do their job as well.
Right?
What exactly does that mean for our bodies?
So imagine NAD+ as the fuel for the sirtuin engine.
Okay.
Less fuel, less horsepower. And that decline in NAD+ is directly linked to decreased energy
Okay.
and a whole cascade of age-related issues.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so in fact, between ages 40 and 60,
Okay.
most people see their NAD+ levels drop by more than half.
Okay, that's starting to hit a little close to home for me.
I know, right?
But wait, didn't Sinclair find a way to boost NAD+ levels?
He did.
Something about a molecule called NMN?
Yes, NMN.
Okay.
His research showed that giving older mice NMN,
Okay.
which is a precursor to NAD+,
Okay.
led to some pretty remarkable improvements.
Like what?
These mice, they saw increases in muscle strength, endurance, even metabolic health.
Wow.
It's like giving their cells a serious energy boost.
So this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
I read that Sinclair himself takes NMN daily.
He does.
So if this is so promising, why isn't everyone jumping on the NMN bandwagon?
That is a great question.
Are there downsides or unknowns we should be aware of?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that leads us into some of the complexities of this research.
Oh.
While the initial results are exciting, there's still a lot we just don't know.
Okay.
More research is needed
Yeah.
to determine the long-term effects and the safety of boosting NAD+ in humans.
So it's not as simple as just popping a supplement and calling it a day.
No, not quite.
Okay.
And it's important to remember that aging is a multifaceted process.
Right.
While boosting NAD+, might address certain aspects.
Yeah.
It's not a magic bullet.
Gotcha.
Sinclair emphasizes that a holistic approach,
Okay.
encompassing lifestyle changes alongside these potential future therapies, is key to maximizing our health span.
Okay, so NMN isn't a quick fix.
Right.
But what about those lifestyle changes? Everyone's always talking about diet and exercise.
Of course.
But how do those everyday choices actually impact aging at that cellular level?
Well, Lifespan really dives deep into the science behind those familiar recommendations.
Okay.
Sinclair argues that a plant-based, low-calorie diet can activate specific genes and pathways that promote longevity.
But isn't our body constantly repairing itself anyway?
It is.
What's so special about a plant-based, low-calorie diet that makes it stand out for longevity?
It seems to trigger this cellular process called autophagy.
Autophagy.
Where our cells essentially clean house. They get rid of damaged components and recycle them.
Wow.
Think of it like a cellular spring cleaning.
Okay.
And this process is enhanced when we limit our calorie intake and focus on those nutrient-dense foods.
So it's not just about what we eat.
Right.
It's also about how much.
Precisely.
Okay.
Sinclair's also a big advocate for intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting.
Yeah, which, as you know, involves cycling between periods of eating and fasting.
Right. I've heard about intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
But I've always wondered, isn't our body constantly repairing itself anyway?
It is.
Why is this fasting window so crucial?
Right.
What's happening at the cellular level that makes it so beneficial?
So it seems that giving our digestive system a break allows our bodies to really focus on other processes.
Like what?
Like repair and rejuvenation. And this activates a cellular pathway called AMPK.
Yeah, AMPK.
Which acts like this master regulator of energy and longevity.
So it's like our body shifts gears from processing food to focusing on maintenance and repair.
Exactly.
Got it. And of course, we can't forget about exercise.
We can't.
Sinclair highlights the importance of regular physical activity.
Yes.
Especially high-intensity interval training, or HIAT.
HIA.
But isn't our body constantly repairing itself anyway?
It is.
Why is HIAT so important for longevity?
Yeah.
What's happening at the cellular level that makes it different from other forms of exercise?
It seems that those intense bursts of activity in HIAT stimulate mitochondrial growth and efficiency.
Okay.
And mitochondria are the powerhouses of our cells.
Right.
And having more of them and having them work better
is
linked to better energy production and overall cellular health.
So it's like giving ourselves a power-up.
A power-up, exactly.
Yeah. I have to admit, some of the other things Sinclair recommends sound a bit more extreme.
Like what?
Like cold and heat exposure.
Oh, yeah.
Are ice baths and saunas really necessary for, like, hacking aging?
They're not for everyone.
Okay.
But there's growing evidence suggesting that these short periods of temperature stress trigger beneficial adaptations.
Okay.
So cold exposure, like ice baths, can stimulate brown fat.
Brown fat.
Which helps regulate metabolism and burn calories.
Oh, okay.
And sauna use activates heat shock proteins.
Heat shock proteins.
Which are involved in cellular repair and stress resistance.
Okay, so it's like giving ourselves a little workout to make them more resilient.
Yeah, a little boot camp.
But how does this actually translate to living longer?
Right.
Are there studies showing that people who do these things actually have longer lifespans?
There's a growing body of research linking these practices to various health benefits.
Okay.
Including a lower risk of chronic diseases.
Okay.
And even improved longevity in some studies. But the field is still evolving, and more research is needed to really understand those long-term effects.
So it seems like these hacks could be valuable tools.
Yeah.
But it's important to approach them with caution and do your research.
Absolutely.
But this is all still focusing on lifestyle.
Right.
What about those more futuristic therapies on the horizon?
Yeah.
Sinclair talks a lot about gene therapy and senolytics.
He does.
Are those things we could realistically see in our lifetime?
Those are the areas where things get really exciting.
Okay.
And maybe a little mind-bending.
Okay, I'm ready.
Gene therapy, as you know, involves altering our genes to treat or prevent disease.
Right.
Sinclair's lab has already made some incredible strides in this area.
Really?
Even reversing blindness in aged mice.
Wait, so they actually restored vision using gene therapy?
They did?
How does that even work? Are we talking about rewriting our DNA entirely?
It's not about rewriting our entire DNA, but rather targeting specific genes that play a role in aging. In the case of the mice, they used a set of genes called Yamanaka factors, which can reprogram cells back to a more youthful state.
So they essentially hit the reset button on those cells.
Essentially, yes.
That's incredible.
It is pretty amazing.
But is this something that could apply to humans beyond just vision?
Right.
Could it potentially reverse other age-related damage?
That's the hope.
Wow.
The research is still in its infancy.
Okay.
But the potential is enormous.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to regenerate damaged tissues, rejuvenate organs, and essentially turn back the clock on the aging process itself.
That's amazing, but also a little terrifying.
It is a little bit of both.
What would that mean for society if we could live decades longer, or even centuries?
Yeah.
It seems like it would create a whole new set of challenges.
It certainly would, and that brings us to the ethical considerations that Sinclair raises in Lifespan.
Okay.
He doesn't shy away from the potential downsides and challenges of extending human lifespans. And he encourages thoughtful discussion and debate as we navigate this uncharted territory.
This is all so much to process.
I know, right?
We've gone from the basics of how aging works to potential therapies that sound like science fiction.
It's pretty wild.
We'll need to take a break to let it all sink in.
Yeah!
But don't go anywhere. We'll be back to explore even more mind-blowing concepts from Lifespan.
Definitely.
So welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
Before the break, we were talking about gene therapy. Potentially hitting the reset button on aging.
It's really fascinating stuff.
It's mind-blowing stuff.
It is.
But while we wait for science to catch up, are there other things that we can do now to kind of nudge ourselves in the right direction?
Absolutely. While those futuristic therapies hold immense promise, we can't just sit back and wait.
Right.
Lifespan really emphasizes the power we have right now to influence our own aging trajectory.
Okay, but everyone's heard the usual advice. Eat healthy exercise, get enough sleep.
Of course.
What's so different about Sinclair's approach?
It's not just about those basic recommendations.
Okay.
It's about understanding the science behind them.
Okay.
Sinclair really dives deep into the cellular mechanisms that drive aging.
Okay.
And he provides evidence-based strategies to target those mechanisms directly.
So it's like having a user manual for our own biology.
Kind of, yeah.
But let's get specific. If someone listening right now wants to start implementing these longevity principles, where do they begin?
Well, as we discussed before, diet plays a crucial role.
Diet,
Sinclair recommends a predominantly plant-based diet.
Okay.
Rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and minimizing processed foods and added sugars.
So loading up on those antioxidants and phytonutrients to combat cellular damage.
Exactly. And it's not just about what we eat.
Okay.
But when we eat.
Right.
Sinclair is a big proponent of intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting.
Which involves cycling between periods of eating and fasting.
Right. We touched on that earlier.
We did.
But realistically, how practical is it for most people?
Yeah.
To stick to those strict eating windows?
It's more about finding what works for you and your lifestyle.
Right.
You don't need to jump into a 24-hour fast right away.
Right.
Even starting with a 12-hour overnight fast can have benefits.
So maybe just pushing back that late-night snacking?
Exactly. And gradually adjusting that eating window as you feel comfortable.
Okay.
The key is to give your body those regular breaks from digestion, allowing it to focus on repair and rejuvenation.
Okay, that makes sense, but let's be honest.
Sure.
Most people know that eating healthy and watching their calorie intake is good for them.
Right.
What's so different about Sinclair's approach?
So Sinclair connects these practices to specific cellular pathways.
Okay.
Intermittent fasting, for example,
Yeah.
activates a pathway called AMPK,
AMPK.
which acts like a master regulator of energy and promotes cellular repair. And calorie restriction seems to enhance autophagy.
Autophagy.
A process where our cells essentially clean house and recycle damaged components.
So it's like taking out the cellular trash.
Precisely. And of course, exercise is another key component.
Exercise, of course.
Sinclair emphasizes the benefits of regular physical activity.
Yeah.
And he's especially enthusiastic about high-intensity interval training, or HIIT.
HIIT.
Yeah.
Okay, but plenty of people exercise regularly without necessarily focusing on longevity.
Sure.
What makes HII stand out in this context?
It seems to be particularly effective at boosting mitochondrial function.
Okay.
Mitochondria are the powerhouses of our cells.
Yeah.
Responsible for producing energy.
Right.
HIIT, with its intense bursts of activity, seems to stimulate the growth and efficiency of these mitochondria.
So it's like supercharging those cellular batteries.
That's a great way to put it.
I like that.
And when our mitochondria are functioning optimally, our cells have more energy to perform all those essential tasks,
Okay.
from repairing damage to fighting off disease.
We also talked about some of the more out there strategies Sinclair recommends,
Yes.
like cold and heat exposure.
Right, like ice baths and saunas.
But are things like ice baths and saunas really necessary for longevity?
They're not for everyone, but they can offer additional benefits.
Okay, like what?
Cold exposure, for example, can stimulate brown fat,
Brown fat.
which helps burn calories and regulate body temperature. And sauna use activates heat shock proteins,
Heat shock proteins.
which play a role in cellular repair and stress resistance.
But do we need to subject ourselves to those extremes to reap the benefits?
Right.
What if I just hate being cold?
It's about finding what works for you and your comfort level.
Okay.
You don't need to jump into an ice bath if it fills you with dread.
Right. Yeah.
Even a cold shower can offer some benefits.
Okay.
And with saunas, you can start with shorter sessions and gradually increase the duration as you adapt.
So it's about pushing those comfort zones a little.
Yeah.
But not torturing ourselves.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot
Okay.
where we challenge our bodies just enough to trigger those adaptive responses.
Okay. That makes sense. So we've covered the lifestyle side of things.
We have.
But I'm really curious to dive deeper into those futuristic therapies that Sinclair discusses in Lifespan.
Okay.
We briefly touched on gene therapy.
Yeah.
Could you remind us how that works
Sure.
and what its potential applications are in the context of aging?
Gene therapy involves introducing, removing, or altering genes within an individual's cells to treat or prevent disease.
Right.
In the context of aging,
Uh-huh.
it holds the potential to address those underlying genetic factors
Yeah.
that contribute to age-related decline.
So could we theoretically use gene therapy to repair those scratches on our DNA that we talked about earlier?
And if that's the idea, we could potentially target those genes that are malfunctioning or expressing themselves in ways that accelerate aging and essentially reprogram them back to a more useful state.
But isn't gene therapy incredibly complex and expensive?
It is.
Is it something we could realistically see becoming widely available in our lifetime?
The field is rapidly advancing and costs are coming down as technology improves.
That's good.
There are still challenges,
Yeah.
but Sinclair is optimistic that gene therapy will play a major role in the future of anti-aging medicine.
What about senolytics?
Yeah, senolytics.
We mentioned them briefly before.
We did.
Could you remind us how they work and what the potential benefits are?
As we age, we accumulate these zombie cells,
Zombie
called
cells.
senescent cells.
Senescent cells.
They no longer divide,
Okay.
but they also don't die off like they should.
Yeah.
They just hang around, secreting inflammatory substances and causing damage to surrounding tissues.
So they're like the cellular equivalent of hoarders,
Yes,
cluttering up our bodies with junk.
a perfect analogy. And that's where senolytics come in. These are drugs that specifically target and eliminate those senescent cells.
So it's like a targeted cleanup crew for our bodies.
Exactly.
I like it.
And the results in animal studies have been remarkable.
Really?
Mice treated with senolytics have shown improvements in various age-related conditions,
Like what?
including reduced inflammation,
Okay.
improved heart function, and even increased lifespan.
That's incredible, but are there any downsides or potential risks associated with eliminating these senescent cells?
There's still much we don't know about the long-term effects of senolytics.
Okay.
More research is needed
Yeah.
to understand their potential side effects
Right.
and determine the optimal dosing and treatment regimens.
So while it's exciting, we need to proceed with caution.
Absolutely. It's important to be informed and have realistic expectations.
Okay.
We're still in the early stages of understanding how to safely and effectively
Yeah.
target senescent cells in humans.
But the potential is there for a major breakthrough in how we approach age-related diseases.
Without a doubt, senolytics represent a paradigm shift
Wow.
in our thinking about aging. Instead of simply managing symptoms,
Right.
we might be able to address the root causes of age-related decline.
Okay, so gene therapy and senolytics hold immense promise.
They do.
But what about those of us who are maybe a bit more skeptical?
Right.
Is this just hype?
Yeah.
Or is there really something to these radical ideas about extending lifespan?
It's understandable to be skeptical.
Yeah.
You know, we've been conditioned to accept aging as inevitable.
Right.
But the science is shifting,
Okay.
and the evidence is mounting that we have more control over our aging trajectory than we previously believed.
So it's not just wishful thinking. Right. There's real scientific backing to these ideas.
Exactly. Sinclair's work and the work of many other researchers in the field is rigorously grounded in scientific evidence.
Okay.
And while there are still many unknowns, the potential is there to fundamentally change how we approach aging and extend our health span significantly.
But even if we could live significantly longer, wouldn't that create a whole host of new challenges? Wouldn't it strain our resources to exacerbate inequality and disrupt the natural order of things?
Those are all valid concerns.
Yeah.
And Sinclair addresses them head-on in Lifespan.
He does.
He acknowledges the potential downsides and challenges of extending human lifespans.
So it's not just blind optimism. He's actually considering the potential consequences.
Absolutely. Sinclair believes that we need to have these difficult conversations now before these technologies become widespread.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We need to grapple with the ethical, social, and economic implications of a future where people routinely live to 100 or beyond.
This deep dive has taken us from the cellular level to the societal level.
It has.
And it's clear that lifespan isn't just about science. It's about prompting us to rethink our assumptions about aging and imagine a future that was once considered the realm of science fiction.
It really is.
We need to take another quick break.
Right.
But when we come back, we'll wrap up our exploration of lifespan.
Sounds good.
With some final thoughts and key takeaways, so stay with us.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've spent this episode exploring Lifespan by David Sinclair.
It's a fascinating book.
It really is a book that's challenged how we think about aging.
Yeah.
It's been a wild ride from those DVD scratches on our DNA to futuristic gene therapies.
There's a lot to take in.
It is. But now let's bring it all home.
Okay.
If you had to boil it down,
yeah,
what are the big takeaways our listeners should remember from Lifespan?
I think the most powerful message is that aging isn't this fixed destiny. It's a process we can influence and maybe even dramatically slow down.
Okay.
Through the choices we make now and the technologies that are on the horizon.
So it's not about accepting that our bodies are just going to wear out.
But realizing we have more agency than we thought.
Exactly. We're not just passengers on this aging journey.
I like that.
We can take the wheel and steer towards a longer, healthier future.
We can be in the driver's seat.
Yes, but it's not about waiting for some magic pill.
Right.
It's about taking action today.
Right. We've talked about a lot of those actions.
We have.
From tweaking our diet to potentially even using gene therapy down the line.
Right.
But for someone listening who's thinking, okay, I'm ready to embrace this longevity mindset, where do they even begin?
The foundation is what we've been discussing, a healthy lifestyle.
Okay.
Prioritizing a nutrient-rich diet. Regular exercise, managing stress, and getting quality sleep are all crucial.
Yeah.
These aren't just good habits.
Right.
They're laying the groundwork for healthy aging at a cellular level.
So those familiar recommendations really are important.
They are.
But Lifespan gives them a whole new level of urgency.
Absolutely. We're not just talking about fitting into our genes.
Right.
We're talking about potentially adding decades of healthy years to our lives.
Wow.
And beyond those basics,
yeah,
Sinclair dives into some interesting hacks like intermittent fasting and cold exposure.
Right. Those sparked a lot of debate.
Yeah.
Some people are gung-ho about ice baths and sauna routines, while others are like, no way, that's too extreme.
It's definitely not for everyone.
What's your take on those more intense strategies?
I think it's about finding what works for each individual.
Okay.
The science behind them is intriguing.
Yeah.
But it's not about pushing yourself to the point of misery.
Right.
Maybe you start with a shorter fasting window or a cool shower instead of a full-on ice bath.
Okay.
It's about those small, sustainable changes that add up over time.
So it's not about becoming a biohacking fanatic.
Right.
But being mindful of how our choices impact those aging processes.
Exactly, and staying informed.
Staying informed, okay.
The field of aging research is exploding right now.
It is.
We need to be savvy consumers of information, critically evaluating what we read, and making choices that align with our personal health goals.
And Sinclair doesn't just focus on individual actions, right? He also challenges us to think about the bigger picture of what longer lifespans could mean for society as a whole.
Exactly.
Were there any parts of that discussion that particularly resonated with you?
One thing that struck me was the potential for increased intergenerational understanding.
Intergenerational understanding.
Imagine a world where multiple generations are living longer, healthier lives.
Yeah.
Working side by side, sharing wisdom and experiences. That could lead to a more collaborative and empathetic society.
It's almost like time becomes less of a dividing line.
Precisely. And if people are living longer, healthier lives, that could revolutionize our approach to work retirement education.
Wow.
Even how we structure our cities.
It's exciting, but also daunting to think about all the potential ripple effects.
Absolutely. It's not a simple equation.
Right.
There are potential downsides to consider as well.
Yeah,
Resource management, economic inequality, the psychological impact of living much longer than previous generations.
That's true.
But I think Sinclair's point is that we can't ignore these possibilities.
Right.
We need to start having these conversations now, exploring the ethical and practical implications so we can navigate this future thoughtfully.
That's a great point. We can't just focus on the how of extending lifespan.
Right.
We need to grapple with the why and the what next.
Exactly. And that's what makes Lifespan such a compelling read.
Okay.
It's not just about extending life. It's about rethinking what it means to live a long, fulfilling life.
Right.
In a world where aging is no longer seen as an inevitable decline.
It's a call to action for all of us.
It is.
Whether we're scientists, policymakers, or just individuals trying to make healthy choices.
I think Sinclair's ultimate message is one of empowerment.
Empowerment.
We're not just victims of our genes or our circumstances.
Right.
We have the power to shape our own aging journey and contribute to a future where longer, healthier lives are not just a possibility, but a reality.
This deep dive has been a real mind bender.
It has.
We've explored the science, the strategies, and the big questions that Lifespan raises.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
It is. So, dear listener, what will you do with this newfound knowledge?
What will you do?
What steps will you take to optimize your own health span?
Right.
And contribute to a future where aging is no longer a synonym for decline, but an opportunity for continued growth and contribution? That's a wrap for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the fascinating world of longevity.